And eventually they decided that they were going to meet. They call that first meeting the First Continental Congress. The First Continental Congress met in September of 1774. There were 56 delegates there from all 13 colonies. Even Rhode Island sent somebody. At this First Continental Congress, they wanted to present a united front. They wrote what was called the Declaration of Rights and Resolves. It was a little bit more strongly worded than what came out of Stamp Act Congress, but they decided that they were going to collectively oppose the coercive acts. This is not just a fight against Boston. Now you have picked a fight with all of us. And they decided that they were going to establish a formal organization to boycott British goods all over the colonies. Once this document finally makes it to Great Britain, the response was actual battles. So they ramped up the soldiers, they were given orders, and there were battles in Massachusetts, in Lexington and Concord, about 30 miles away. These did not go well for the colonists. Number one, this was the Massachusetts militia. They were not well organized. Great Britain was the strongest, most well organized military in the world. So the militiamen were quickly defeated. But Great Britain was, if you read some of the letters that were going back, the diaries and the letters that were going back from British soldiers, they were like, these people are crazy. They don't engage in regular rules of war. People were shooting at us. Kids were shooting at us. Women were shooting at us. They were shooting from outside of houses. We would just be walking, and all of a sudden we would have to duck and cover. These people are crazy, and they're out of control. So it did prove the might of the English army, but it also proved that they could be shaken up because they were confused. The next year, May of 1775, the group got together again. This was the Second Continental Congress. July 5th, 1775, one last document goes out. It was called the Olive Branch Petition. And it was kind of a, don't you remember when letter? Don't you remember when everybody was making money and you just stayed over there and you didn't have all these rules and we were not fighting? Can't we just go back to that? Can't we all get along? Let's end the hostilities. Let's go back. Once the letter arrived, King George responded by sending even more troops and really starting to ramp up and let them know that we are not going to take this from you. We don't know who you think you are. If Lexington and Concord didn't prove anything to you, then we're just going to let you know that we are not going to take any boycotts. We're not going to take any resistance from little untrained militias in North America, in the colonies. So at the Second Continental Congress, people could see the writing on the wall. And so one of the first things that they did was said, okay, if we are going to have an army, let's appoint someone to be over it. Who do they call? They call George Washington, who had the most military experience. He had military experience that dated back to the French and Indian War. So they said if there's going to be an army, a continental army, George Washington is going to be the commander in chief. They actually disbanded. They called the Second Continental Congress into recess, sent everybody home, and the question that they were supposed to be asking in their colonies was, can we vote to go to war? Are we going to declare independence from Great Britain, or are we going to keep trying to reconcile? They left there this committee of 5 people led by Thomas Jefferson, and their job was to write a declaration of war in case they came back and voted to actually go to war. Now, Thomas Jefferson had some experience with constitutions, and he had met this guy named John Locke. John Locke helped write constitutions, several constitutions, and including the one in South Carolina. And John Locke had this concept that he had written about. And he said, I just don't know that I am comfortable with the concept of kings having divine rights and people don't have any rights, that they just have to accept that God placed this monarch in power, and if we defy them, then we're defying God, so we must just do what this monarch says. He doubted that. He started to say, I think every individual is actually given some rights directly from the Creator that are separate from a monarch. And they get to decide if they want to be governed. They act right because they make a decision. It's a contract, actually. So you give up some of your liberty that is yours in exchange for having a society that works. It's a bargain for exchange. That's called a contract. Both parties give something, both parties get something. Now, what were you giving? As a person, you are endowed by your Creator, John Locke said, with the rights to life, liberty, and property. So these were what you had to exchange. So when Thomas Jefferson got ready to write this document, he starts paraphrasing this philosophy that John Locke was discussing. Had this been applied anywhere other than in some of the colonies? No, it had not. But here Thomas Jefferson starts writing, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. That came straight from John Locke. These are, Thomas Jefferson wrote, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It didn't make any sense to write down property because everybody didn't own property. So if you were trying to inspire people to fight, and you were saying that you had a right to property and people didn't have it, that wasn't going to be very inspiring. So he replaced that word property with the pursuit of happiness. Now, Thomas Jefferson, a slave owner, writes in there that all men are created equal. He also wrote some provisions about phasing out slavery. That all got removed. And he finishes it out by saying that governments get their power from the consent of the governed. We give you power because we're getting something, not because You're telling us we have to. And if you are not keeping your end of the bargain, then we have to leave. It's the right of the people to alter or abolish a government that is imposing but not giving anything. Those were the basic tenets of the Declaration of Independence. Well, the delegates get back. They vote to secede. They vote to go ahead and declare war. New York abstained. And they got to working on the Declaration of Independence and finally came out with a document that the majority of people were happy with. And they put it in an envelope, put it on a ship, and it gets shipped off. I am sure that Great Britain was beside itself. What the heck are they doing? Who do they think they are? After everything that I have done, how could they ever think that they deserve some type of independence? But it's done now. There was one last ditch effort to negotiate in New York that did not go very well, and the war was officially on.